Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 26th Planning Commission. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion carries. Can we get a motion to approve the April 17th Planning Commission minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So motion carries. Moving along quick here. New business, United Properties TIF.
Thanks. I think first I don't think any of you have met Dave, the city attorney, so I'm gonna ask that Dave introduces himself quickly.
Thanks, Erin. And hi, planning commissioners. My name is David Anderson. I'm the city attorney. I don't think I've been in front of the planning commission ever.
I don't think so.
Maybe once on Brookview via Zoom or Teams, but that was back when we were remote during, COVID, I believe. But I just wanted to introduce myself, and it's great to see everybody in person. I oftentimes get to read your recommendations or talk to Erin about, how different land use applications are received by the Planning Commission. So it's nice to put faces to all your names, and just a pleasure to be here tonight. So thanks for having me.
All right. So Dave is gonna back me up if you have really detailed TIF questions or wanna go in the weeds, which he's probably gonna tell you not to do, but he's my backup for TIF questions. So tonight, we are reviewing an application for United Properties, which is the industrial project that's developing directly east of Lakeview. So the Planning Commission is seeing a couple of renditions of their project, like the concept plan. They're in right now for rezoning, preliminary plat, and final plat. So we're anticipating an additional application to come before you either late this summer or early fall. So we're working through that process now. This is an interesting ask of the Planning Commission to think about TIF, since this isn't typically something that you review. But as part of the TIF application, the Planning Commission is tasked with a role to make sure that the project conforms with our development plan. So a little bit about tax increment financing, or TIF. It's a financing tool that captures the taxes from a property that is developing. So as a property develops, the taxable value goes up. That taxable value is then captured and applied towards the project. So the developer is able to use those funds captured with the difference in the taxes to build the building, do infrastructure, use it directly for the project. So instead of the taxes coming to the city, the school district, the county, during the development of the project, it goes back to the developer to reinvest into the site. The TIF application is really specific, how funds can be used. It can't be used for the pool in the back. It has to be for infrastructure development costs. So the TIF district is established for a number of years. Once that term expires, the city, county, taxable jurisdictions then begin to capture the taxes back, as we would have if TIF had not been in place during those years that the TIF was applicable. So the Planning Commission's role tonight is to find conformance of the project to the general plan for development of the city described in the comprehensive plan. So thinking about the United Properties project, does it meet the intent of our comprehensive plan? Is it consistent with our future land use map? The Planning Commission's role tonight is not to talk about the use of TIF for the project, that's the City Council's responsibility, or the terms of the TIF district, also the City Council. So the City Council's next review of the TIF plan will be at their July 7th meeting. We'll be holding a public hearing. So if you'd like to come and talk about TIF as a resident, you're welcome to do that in that space. But tonight, the Planning Commission's role is just to find conformance of the project to the comprehensive plan. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so on the screen is the concept plan that you previously have reviewed. It's the United Properties piece directly adjacent to Lakeview Industries, Fleet Farm, north of 212, adjacent to Levi Griffin and Jonathan Carver Parkway. You've seen this before. It's two buildings, both at about 190,000 square feet, with infrastructure of parking, landscape, ponding, etc. You'll see on the right is the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and the circle is the site where the project is proposed. So the land use map shows this project to develop as commercial or industrial, which the general intent of the United Properties project does meet the land use for the comprehensive plan. So a comp plan amendment is not required for this project due to the use being consistent with the future land use map. So there's a resolution in your packet, which is not super typical for this group. It probably felt a little stuffy and maybe challenging to read. It's a pretty complex process. But again, your role is pretty minor in the TIF application. The city council's been working on it for a while. They will continue. But your step tonight is to find conformance of the project to the development plan for the city. So I'll open it up for questions. Members from the project development team from United Properties are here too. So questions, comments, let us know.
Do we have any other TIF, I'm just curious, other TIF properties in the city?
We do, yes. Fleet Farm was one, Lakeview Industries was, and Carver Ridge.
Carver Ridge, okay.
What's the time frame?
Typically 30 years.
I think Fleet Farm was only 12.
Yeah, it can be negotiated through the TIF plan.
And this is an economic development district, so it's actually it'll be probably a 7-year district.
Yeah,
That's the
great.
maximum for this type. On redevelopment projects and housing projects, which we've done in the city, that's when it's it's around 30 years, a little less than that. But this one I would anticipate is going to be significantly less, just because the maximum number of years on an economic development project is 7.
So economic development, meaning it brings jobs into our community, and that's why we're giving them that. We want them to come
Correct.
create those jobs.
Yep, and one thing that you always have to prove, and the council will have to find this before they can approve the use of tax increment, is that they meet what's called the but-for test. They wouldn't be able to develop but for the government subsidy that is being provided through the use of tax increment. So what we would intend to be using here, and what the city has used in the past, is what's called a pay-as-you-go note. They spend millions of dollars to develop their site, and then the city will issue them a note which would provide them the ability to be paid back from tax increment, but it's very low risk to the city because they only get that money if increment is received by the city in the form of increased tax base. So it's a great tool for development. A lot of cities use it, not uncommon at all. And Erin sort of alluded to this, but it's I don't want to minimize the planning commission's role, or at least where we're at with the project today. There's going to be land use approvals, and the planning commission is going to be very involved in those public hearings like you usually are. But before a tax increment plan can be approved, the city council has to approve the actual development district. A lot of cities just have that district be coterminous with your boundaries. The reason it has to be amended here is because this is newly annexed property. So the previous coterminous development district that the city council had created didn't include any land that has since been annexed. And so pursuant to the tax increment statute, the council has to reestablish a new district boundary as the larger city, now that it's a bit bigger than it was before. And as a condition precedent to doing that, they have to come to their planning agency, the planning commission, and just confirm that you're of the belief that this project and the new district is generally consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, if that makes sense. I think Erin did a good job of articulating that, but I like to get a little more into the weeds on this stuff. So just because I'm a nerd and I like tax increment financing.
If Dave was here for the code stuff, we would be here for days. So
I can't tell if that's a compliment.
Are you
I
leaving
mean-
immediately after this discussion?
I was told to, so yes, you won't be here all night, I promise.
I have a question. So if the city has to review the TIF, does the counties and schools, other people that are not going to get the taxes immediately doing the review also?
Yes.
They do, but they don't have any approval authority. So the city gets to decide whether the use of tax increment is appropriate. And it's actually really nice because cities sometimes use what's called tax abatement. It's another tool that developers can use as a local subsidy to their development. But in those situations, you're only getting abatement from the city taxes, whereas in this case, the city is allowed to unilaterally make the decision and decide if tax increment is appropriate, in which case it gets to take those taxes from not only the city's coffers, but also from other taxing authorities. And so I think your quick yes was that yes, they're informed about it,
Yes.
they're involved in it. they don't typically object to it. They understand that this is a very, common use of increased tax base. When I say they, I mean the school district or other taxing authorities, including the county. But they don't get to decide, or they don't have any veto authority over the use of tax increment. So it's a good question.
Any other questions from anyone?
I was looking at the resolution that was written up,
Mhm.
and it says TIF district number 1 through 11. So what is the 1 through 11 reference?
That will be the name of, I don't have the plan in front of me on my PC, but I have it on my phone because I was looking at it earlier.
So I'm gonna try to take that, and Dave, you can tell me if I'm incorrect.
Sure.
But each time we've annexed property and done a TIF application, it's added property to make it 1-9-10-11.
Oh,
So adding the additional
Oh.
property has increased it to a different version.
got it.
Yeah, and I think this particular TIF district, once it's approved, will be 111.
Correct.
Fleet Farms, I think Fleet Farms 1-9 or 1-10.
Yes.
And this one is for
Yes.
the next in line, if you will. So the district itself is District 1, and again, the development district, and that's the entire city. And each individual TIF district then will be the next number sequentially in line.
So Fleet Farm was 9, Lakeview is 10, Carver Ridge would have been 11, but it was in city limits, so the map didn't need to be adjusted for the boundary. So this would be 11 with a new annex property.
And there's not a way to write it where we just say, like, as things get added into our city, that they're TIF'd, because we allow that as a city?
No, so with each annexation, we have to do the same application to apply the land use map to the new area that was added to the city.
They've tightened the rules quite a bit in the last decade or so on TIF.
There's been some changes, yes. And I think to answer the main question, could we just do like some catch-all approval where every time there's no new land annexed, could we just automatically bring that into the development district? Unfortunately, no, just because of how stringent the statute is, but it's also not a huge undertaking for the city because every new project is going to require a new TIF plan, which will require council approval, land use approvals from the planning commission, and all those sort of standard things. So when we go get those approvals, we can bootstrap this kind of I would call it a housekeeping amendment to the district itself and just create the larger district. So it's nice to check all these boxes. When you use tax increment, you want to be very careful that every T is crossed and I is dotted, and there's a lot of auditing that happens with these, and they just like to look at city records to make sure that everything is done correctly. Just given the substantial amount of what really is public money being used for these projects, but in a perfectly legitimate and I think necessary way. But that's another good question.
All right, I got a dumb question. Bear with me on this one. Since it has to do with us basically affirming that this plan conforms with the future land use plan. So if you go back to the map here, two-part question. The first question is, as far as the United Property, I'm going to stand to make it easier. What's like the northern border? Is it this line here where you got the two vertically oriented parcels, or is the northern border of the United Property a little further south?
Nope, it is the east-west line.
Okay. And then, so the other question then I have relates to what is the current future land use plan that we're operating off of? Because I'm seeing two different plans. One in the design Carver plan dated February 20. It shows basically from about here-ish, best I can guess, north still is agricultural. I don't know if that's been changed in the 2020 plan.
So it's the property directly north. So any property that is in ag preserve at the time of our comprehensive plan has to be shown as an agricultural use on our
Okay.
future land use map. And then the city typically goes through a comp plan amendment process to re-guide the property. So our comp plan has a future land use map that shows the ag uses and then the secondary map. So the original, the first version with the ag overlay, I find to be misleading. because then people believe that the property will be ag in perpetuity or through the life of the comprehensive plan. I've shared that feedback with them at council. Unfortunately, I personally have not been able to make that change. But this property specifically does not require a comp plan amendment. It's the Wickenhauser piece that's directly north.
So as far as this map here, this being a 2018 map, on 2020 map, 2 years later, this is ag, so that 2020 map is inaccurate or something's changed?
No, so you're looking at two different maps. This map does not have the ag preserve overlay on it.
Okay.
So the version that you're thinking that has the ag preserve is a totally separate map. There's properties throughout the entire growth area that have that ag preserve overlay, like the Lenzen property, which will be the enclave, has that ag designation. So it's two separate maps, both in our comp plan. We found it important to do the two separate maps because we didn't want people to look at our future land use map and say, wow, that property's ag. It's never going to develop. It's always going to be a farm when we have intents of property developing differently. So we have two different maps. So it's the one you're looking at is the ag requirement that the Met Council requires. The second is our secondary map that shows the future land use, how we believe it will develop once the ag preserve portion is gone.
Okay. It's just kind of confusing because both those maps have the exact same title, future land use. Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Can we get a motion to proceed with the TIF?
Not really seeing with the TIF, are we? We're just confirming that
Yep,
the modification conforms with the land use plan.
correct.
Is my understanding.
Yes.
There's some verbiage on the action agenda if you want to just, whoever makes the motion.
Whoever wants to read it.
Yeah.
I'll read it. I'd like to make a motion that the proposed development program modification and the TIF plan conform to the general plan for the development or redevelopment of the city as a whole, and that this commission recommends the development program modification and the TIF plan to the city council for approval.
Second.
And any further discussion?
Just to clarify, not to be a stickler, but I assume that motion is intended to approve the resolution that's in the packet, correct? Can you just make that clear for the record?
Tell her
That
what
would be
to
my
say.
recommendation.
Say that again.
Tell her what you want her to say.
Okay. Maybe if you don't mind just amending the motion to a motion to approve resolution number 1-2025.
Okay, I'm gonna make an amendment to my motion. To go ahead and agree to the,
It could just be to
Amendment 125.
approve resolution 1-2025.
I make a motion to approve the resolution number 1-2025.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Are we good? So all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
And I recognize that the planning commission never has resolutions, so it's new to you, so forgive me for just making that clear, but I wanted the
No, we wanna
record
get
to
it
reflect
right.
that.
Mhm.
I really have to
Come
sign
back.
this?
Much shorter.
Yeah. Thanks. It's about to get pretty boring if you want to leave. No, it really is.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Make them stay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
She already said it.
Thank you.
Really nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, on to old business. So, special regular,
I'm going to jump right in if that's okay with you all. Okay, so special regulations is a really interesting section in our code, I think personally. It's become a little bit of a catch-all, I think, for anything that's zoning related that people haven't known where to put it. I think they've put it in special regulations. I also think some sections of our code are pretty antiquated and things that we probably don't need to think about in Carver in 2025. We can have that discussion as we move through. I will say special regulations is kind of the last really meaty section that we'll go through, which I think feels pretty good that we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think we'll break this up over a couple of meetings since there is a lot of information and then some additions that I think are appropriate and important. So moving through the list, it has been just interesting to think about the past 7.5 years that I've been in Carver, the areas of the code that I use the most frequently, that people call me the most, that say, I was looking in the code and I couldn't understand this, or I need more information about it. And fences is probably the one that we talk about the most. So that's one of the biggest changes, is pulling fences out of performance standards and making it its own standalone chapter. So it'll be easier to search, easier to find the information, which I'm looking forward to. I'm hopeful that people can find it quicker than they can right now. And then there's some removal of a couple sections and consolidation of a few too. So things like off-street loading facilities is covered through plating and site plan review. So that's like where a truck bay could go. It's something we cover in plating. Underground utilities was removed as a standalone chapter. It goes into performance standards. Agricultural operations was removed. We have an ag district. One that I found to be specifically entertaining was dwelling below ground level as its own independent section in the code, like an earth created home. Being in our code was interesting to me. Spaces between structures is covered in zoning code and building code with setbacks. I don't know what design by registered architect, engineer, or land surveyor meant. It was its own section. It was about a sentence long, so we're removing that. And then two more that are removed. The licensed group home, family daycare, non-residential program is covered in a residential chapter. And then the landscape plan gets consolidated with a new section called landscaping, buffering, and tree preservation. So new additions, fences coming out of performance standards, site plan review, accessory dwelling units, bluff protection gets moved up into special regulations, and then landscape buffering, tree preservation are a couple sections pulled together to one. So I think most of those are pretty straightforward things that we can talk through, but one that I wanted to talk through specifically is the site plan review, when it's appropriate, how we've been operating without a site plan review. So site plan review would be a different process outside of platting. So if someone bought a lot that was already platted, so they could come in and apply for a permit, and it's just a building permit. So we wouldn't have the opportunity to review things or require things like landscaping, parking, building materials like we would through a typical platting process. So this has happened a couple of times recently. So like Mizzy's was an established lot, so that did not require platting. So there technically should not have been a planning commission and city council review at that point. They could have just come in for building permit. We were able to create a process with a builder's agreement for Mizzy's and Les Schwab, require things like landscaping. So if someone comes in for a building permit, it's just the building permit. So we wouldn't be able to say you need X, Y, Z to happen outside of that. So it allows us a review outside of platting. So for an established lot, and that review would happen by both the planning commission and the city council. So something that we have run into, most cities have a site plan review. If I'm being really honest, it is surprising that we haven't. So Dave has felt really strongly about getting a site plan review. In our code, it allows us to also have a developer's agreement to hold them accountable for things like landscaping, making sure it meets the plan, making sure things stay alive, all that good stuff. So that is going to be a section that we'll go through tonight, but I wanted to give a little more information about when we would use it, why we think it's necessary. So we're not going to start with site plan review. We're going to start back from there, but just wanted to give you a heads up. My desktop is always really embarrassing, so I'm going to take that off for a second. All right, I thought we would go in order for the packet, so we would start with performance standards, if that works for you, Krista.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
That list where you had current proposed.
Yep.
I was just curious, you had swimming pools and spas changed just to swimming pools. So do we care about hot tubs?
We have a swimming pool requires a building permit, a hot tub does not.
Okay.
And it doesn't depend on the size.
No. It would, but the pool requirement, it's a large structure. It's like 5,000 gallons, I want to say. I don't know how many gallons are in a hot tub.
Like, what's a swim spa hold?
Like a little pool?
No,
Yeah, like one of those big rectangular things.
that you swim in, and it has like the current.
So if it is a pool that is in the ground and it is hooked up to like heating, electricity, etc., it's going to get a permit. If it's a hot tub that you plug in, it's not going to get a permit.
Above the ground.
Above ground pools also require a permit because there's fencing requirements for a pool.
Does
Like, my pond doesn't require it.
Truth.
Are you swimming in there?
I'm not, fish are.
We're ready to go into performance standards?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm hoping it pops back up on the screen. It was like a second ago. And I can do the old millennial unplug.
A restart.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so Erin, while she's working on that, just a quick question.
Yeah.
As far as like the bullet numbering, formatting and stuff like that, this isn't the final, okay. Cool.
Once we have the content in place, I'm gonna send it to Natalie to format the entire thing together.
The numbering,
So-
bulleting, okay.
Natalie will be our formatting guru,
Okay.
which surprisingly she loves, which I find appalling.
It's oddly satisfying.
So I went through the red line. Did other people's do red line or the clear copy?
Red line.
The red line.
All right,
Okay, sorry, Erin.
it's okay. Just kidding. It's totally fine.
So just kind of going through the sections, anything in section 1?
Yeah, I'm just gonna let it get out. So, 1C,
Mm-hmm.
the trend is building something called a barndominium. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which are whole structures turned into homes. So I own a barndominium.
You do?
I do, in northern Minnesota, and it's
Okay.
wonderful. And I guess if, I can understand why we wouldn't want that structure in a typical neighborhood. But if we had somebody come in that purchased 5 or 10 acres, well, they would be part of the township, right?
Correct.
They'd be in the ag district.
Yep,
Yeah, so then it's irrelevant because it's a city.
correct.
Okay, I just wanted to call, I'm not opposed to,
I think it's a great call out though, because most of the places where you would have houses that you want to all look the same are gonna be in an HOA, which would limit it. So why would we limit it in here? I agree with that call out completely. I think it's, well, I don't think it's cheaper anymore, but it used to be like the cheaper way to build,
It's
right?
not.
Yeah, it's not anymore, I don't think, but.
I will say we don't want pole build. I can't think of a place where one could be located in Carver city limits.
I think the reasonable locations would be in large acre lots.
Correct.
Not these. Okay, I just wanted to call that out for the sake of the,
What if we annex the area?
We wouldn't annex without a development plan.
And that'd be grandfathered in because it's already there.
Correct. Yep.
Like you have to take it down then.
Yeah.
My only question is some of these, I mean, it says that, face materials such as metal will deteriorate quickly. Which I think metal will be around longer than some shingles. So I don't know if that wording is correct. And it kind of limits the modern element of houses.
Do you mean like metal siding?
Well, like metal siding, metal roofs. I'm assuming there's something different on roofs because it doesn't really say anything on here about roofs.
Yeah, and we have metal roofs have been approved here.
Okay.
So I would say sheet metal is different than metal siding. Sheet metal would be something that is just flat metal with screws in it.
I don't know, I guess for me, again, there's different types of homes, so some people might want to use metal. Like we have metal in our house.
We're not trying to exclude the type of metal you have on your house.
We've galvanized.
Again, I think your house is a portion.
Correct.
A portion of it is metal. It's used as an
Yes.
accent material.
Yeah.
what you're saying here, what you're implying is you can't build a structure, a full structure made out of sheet metal.
Correct.
Well, maybe we insert some verbiage of like greater than
Yeah,
51%
like-
material, can't be sheet metal, so you can have
Majority.
metal accents or,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of struggled because I remember the other code where we went through what you can and can't use.
Mhm.
And then does this conflict with that, where we're calling out specific types of components that are used to finish a home?
Yeah, so if we want to add something that it's a percentage, I think that's in our industrial district. There's a percentage that can be a different material. But I would say, Krista, if your house came in right now, this would not preclude it from happening.
Yeah. But this is all districts also, so, I mean, United Properties, what is the building, is not gonna be a tin building, it's gonna be concrete?
No, so there are ways that you can, like tip-up panels are typically metal, but they look different than sheet metal.
Okay,
So it's a different application of metal. Like Lakeview is primarily a metal building, but there are some grooves in it. It's not flat sheet metal. All right, we gotta move.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then the only, I think this just might be a formatting thing, but, and I don't mean to call it out, but you've got letter E,
Mm-hmm.
seems like the same as letter
C,
C.
I was thinking that too.
So I don't know if it's a formatting thing or if it's just a duplicate, but they could be cleaned up
Yeah.
if it is.
hey,
I have nothing else.
Yeah, I got a couple comments. So looking at 1B, talking about the storage facilities, those have a tendency to be metal buildings. Are we trying to exclude that kind of thing as far as industrial or commercial use?
No.
Okay, so that's just something to think about. And then the other part was in 1D, talking about the hoop type.
Mm-hmm.
Hoop type would have some application in an ag district. I almost would like to move that sentence into C. That would allow hoop type buildings to be put in ag.
what's a hoop building?
Think of like a metal semicircle frame.
Or like a temporary
Oh.
carport.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they make them a lot bigger, like only giant greenhouses, or you can use it for storing like farm equipment, and
Okay.
keeping crops dry, that kind of thing. And they can be hundreds of feet long.
I also just want to mention, there's not an application of ag property being in the city of Carver. So no new property will come in as ag and remain ag. So there are a few properties along Mount Hope that are zoned agriculturally. It's not going to be a zone that's going to exist as we continue to move forward. Like, they will stay ag, but moving forward, no property will come in to be an operational farm in the Carver city limits. So take that with a grain of salt, that our ag district is likely, we should absolutely include this information, but it's not going to be impactful to hundreds of people. It's going to be impactful to two, maybe.
Say two.
Yeah.
So is it safe to assume in the future the whole ag references will just drop out of the city code?
Correct. Once the properties along Mount Hope develop, there likely won't be an ag application in city limits.
Okay.
And they could apply for conditional use if they want to put up something, or is that not?
The-
applicable here?
The ag districts, like the standalone district, allows for some more flexibility. So like they can have larger accessory structures. That's been a big one for people along that stretch. So beyond that, it wouldn't be a conditional use, it would be a variance. But again, like they would be able to put up a pole structure because they're zoned ag.
Okay.
That would be the one district where you could. So if you want to buy that one property on Mount Hope and do a barn dominium, that's probably your one spot right now.
Anything else for 1? Okay. Anything for 2, exterior lighting? Okay, there was a lot of red, but no changes. Anything for residual features? 3, 4. 3 now. Looks like most of it was taken out and combined into one sentence.
Correct.
Okay. And then 5, screening and outdoor storage.
So just a question of clarification. So 5A talks about units must be screened from views from the property lines using the following methods. So is it really practical? I assume we're not talking about all property lines.
Say more.
Well, like you take an average residential house, their condensers outside, usually tucked behind the house somewhere. But it's going to be visible from a side view or
Right.
a view.
So this is just rooftop HVAC. So it's a commercial application, commercial or industrial.
Sure. So with the property lines, we got to kind of specify what property lines.
I would say on a commercial or industrial, it would be all property lines.
All property lines?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't know if is that even practical?
It's just when it's on the roof, though. So you would screen it in on the roof and then have a place to enter on the roof, right?
Correct.
That's how you do it?
Yeah.
They typically do, I've seen that, where they put like a fence around it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Make it appealing. On the
Okay.
roof.
Okay, so if it's not on the roof, it's on the ground, and then it still has to be screened.
Correct.
What happens if it's not? Like, I'm thinking of a place that's not screened.
So it exists now before this section of our code is in.
Okay,
So it would be non-conforming. But if it were to be rebuilt after this code is adopted, there would be a requirement of fencing, a screen plan, or landscaping.
so there's nothing in the plan now that says it has to be, okay. Architecturally, I think that's what
I
that
love
word
that.
is. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yelly.
Anything else on the, what section are we on? Screening and outdoor storage.
So just with 5, we're talking only commercial here.
Correct.
Where is the word commercial only mentioned?
Commercial or industrial?
Where
Yeah,
you seeing that?
we can add that.
So that's where I got to the confusion, because as written, it can be applied to any district.
Sure.
And but our little discussion was only focused on commercial.
Yeah, I was a little confused there. I was just talking about recreational boats and vehicles outside. I'm like, how do you screen those? Anything else in this section? Section 5.
Was that 5?
Oh, well, next section 5.
Next section, 5, 2.0.
5, next one. So my question is this looked at in building permits. So it's basically saying that your house is not gonna look like anyone else's house around you. But when we have flats come in, they say, here's the 5 houses we're gonna choose from, and they're building 200 houses. So when a building permit comes in, if I'm the first one to build, and Billy wants to build 2 houses down, her house can't look like my house?
It can't be the exact same, no.
So exact same meaning,
Same layout, same colors, same
Correct.
landscaping?
Yes.
Or like what's the,
what does it mean by same?
yeah,
That was my definition.
if the color's different but the house is the same, or the house is the same,
Correct.
or like the,
I also will mention, most builders do this already.
Okay,
So they say, like, within 3 houses, they won't sell the same house,
layout.
boom, 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 together.
Okay,
It's not the layout, I forget what they call it. It's like the,
You're talking about the elevation.
yes.
Yep.
There's elevations A, B, and C of a floor plan, and they won't sell 2 elevations of the same floor plan next to each other.
Yeah.
And it might be the addition of a couple dormers, like, it doesn't have to be a total house change,
got it.
but it could be dormers, roof pitch,
different
porch.
Okay,
There's- yeah.
okay, I
And
have
it's
a,
just within 2 houses in either direction too, so you could have the same house theoretically repeat itself 8 houses down or something to that effect.
okay, I don't feel strongly about this, but I'm
Mhm.
just wondering, why does the city care enough to put it in its code?
I will say there are some older neighborhoods where it's 5 of the same houses directly next to each other all the way down.
Yeah, but again, like, why does the city care?
I would say, if you want to take it out, that's
No,
absolutely-
I don't feel strongly about it. I'm just wondering, like, if, I don't know, it's like little houses and I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I come from an area where wasn't 5 houses, it was hundreds of houses.
That's my dream, actually. I live for it. But I
I
just
can
am
tell you a
wondering
place
why
to
it's a
move.
big enough deal that like developers in the city actually care about it. Like, does it lower property value or like?
I would say
why do we care?
It looks a little spooky. If you drive past 5 houses that all look the same.
Okay.
And that's a technical planning term, is spooky.
Okay. Perfect. Put it in the
I'm
minutes.
gonna read that in here soon.
I was, like, Lennar does this already, so.
Yeah. No. I'm sure there's. Yeah. I just read it and wondered why the city would care about something like that.
Have you ever heard of Levittown?
Yeah,
No.
that would be a fascinating planning commission meeting. So it was
I lived a few miles, in fact, my neighborhood wasn't much different. I mean, literally thousands of houses, exactly the same.
it was post-World War II. Veterans came home.
Yeah.
They all built the exact same house. And it's a little spooky. It's interesting. It's
Okay.
fascinating.
Like, I
Well,
guess
it's
there's
interesting
like a
that
security risk if you
people-
walk in the same
Oh, yeah.
house, maybe. Like, I was just wondering when I read it. I was like going through all the.
I mean, every house is the same. And, I don't know, it's almost a sociological
Live for.
impact.
Okay, that was just my curiosity.
And it was interesting that usually within a few years, people were adding on and doing things to make them look different.
Because it's spooky.
Yeah.
Yes.
17, screening. So my only thought here is, do we need a definition of screening?
You need a definition.
Well,
So like move this into the definition section, is that what you're saying?
do we have a definition section?
Yeah.
Did I miss it?
No, our whole code does. Let's close that one. Ugh.
I don't know if you can move it into the definition section because you're actually defining what it means to screen it.
Yeah.
You would define what screening is in the definition section, but this has got the rules of how you're gonna screen it.
And just for clarity, is this residential or commercial or industrial screening?
So anything that would have outdoor screening would be commercial, industrial. So thinking through, like Fleet Farm has some outdoor storage that's
Okay.
screened.
Would it be helpful to add commercial/industrial screening to
Sure.
the title, just for clarity?
It'll be easier to read it when it's all.
Yeah, I think that first sentence still reads interesting though, like the screening of outside areas required to be screened must consist of a solid fence or wall at least 75% opaque and will be at minimum 6 feet and 8 feet maximum. Like, it just reads, I don't know.
It's a little clunky.
I had to read it like 3
Yeah.
times to like understand it.
Right in the 2 sentences.
Yeah.
75% opaque, period, and starting a sentence for the height. However we want to start it.
Yeah.
Fence or screen height, blah, blah, 6 feet, 8 feet.
Add the word height.
It's at the very end.
Yep.
Oh,
There's just a lot of red.
So the planting doesn't need to be as tall if, I mean, obviously it's gonna grow, but do you look at the maximum height the planting is gonna be?
No, it's typically when it's planted.
Any other or next section, I guess? There's no more on screening. Just skip a couple pages here.
Fences becomes its own.
So are we looking at underground utilities?
Yes, so this was a standalone section previously. I'm adding it into performance standards to clean it up a little bit. I also will say, section 1 here, I read through it and thought to myself, there must be a really compelling reason why this information is in our code. And I didn't feel confident enough to delete it. So this is a copy paste of what was in our code previously, but the specificity of it was what made me pause to say, if they felt that strongly, maybe we should keep it.
So my questions relating to this is, like, if you get a new cable installed, is there any timeline of when, how soon that needs to be buried, how deep it has to be buried? Because none of that is really discussed here, so I'm assuming it's discussed somewhere else.
Do you have overhead utilities?
No, underground.
So wouldn't it be buried?
Like, I'm thinking like whoever came through and put fiber cables in.
MetroNet?
And then they're like, oh, we're gonna hook you up. So they hook you up and then they let your cord lay there for 6 months.
Oh,
Yes.
I see. So it's not up.
No.
It's on the ground.
Yes, that was a huge issue.
So then they tape this little cord on it and literally you mow around it, above it, through it.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, it sat there for so long.
That's interesting. I'm gonna think about it in this location. My other thought with that is that MetroNet had to get a right-of-way permit, so to do work in the city's right-of-way, and that might be a more applicable spot based on what the utility is, like if,
So the utilities though, for MetroNet,
mm-hmm,
they were buried immediately in the right of way.
okay,
She's talking
not the
about
private.
is the service line from the right of way to the house.
I don't know. I'll talk to Dave about it, we'll think about it. I didn't realize that they were out for so long.
I got lucky, it was 2 weeks. So then I hit it with an aerator, they had to do it again. It wasn't deep enough.
Not deep enough, yeah.
Did it happen over the winter at all?
No, I feel like it was in the spring,
yeah.
right?
They're
Okay,
out burying lines in my neighborhood a couple weeks ago still.
okay. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll think about it.
So
I
I'm just
didn't realize that was the
reading
thing.
paragraph 1 here about the underground placement requirements.
Mm-hmm,
I'm just wondering if there's a way we could kind of future-proof this passage a little bit.
okay.
Obviously now Excel Energy is providing, but who knows, maybe Minnesota Valley comes in the future or something to that effect.
Yeah.
We can,
A portion of the city has
yeah,
Minnesota Valley.
so if things change, and obviously they got their tariff on file off the Utilities Commission and all this other stuff, but I feel like this is kind of a snapshot in time right now. If there's a way we could massage this to make it a little bit more future-proof if things, service providers change or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
There is mention of MVAC
At the
in the
bottom,
last
yeah.
sentence.
Oh, yeah. So they must,
Like any references to like Excel Energy or parentheses, any other
future
future
utility
provider,
provider.
or something to that
Yeah.
effect, you know.
Yep.
This doesn't become dated in a couple years, some changes.
So with the subdivision of existing utility lines, I'm thinking of like the new development that we've talked about last time.
The Enclave, Summerfield.
Yes. Those people, I'm assuming, have power lines like coming into their house above the ground, right?
Well, new houses won't.
Correct.
But it says here that existing utilities, so if they're brought into the city, do they have to go underground then?
The houses that are in the area are going to be taken down.
Okay, because I just remember looking at the plot and there was like these little houses that weren't.
Oh, those exception pieces?
Yeah.
Those won't be coming into the city. So it's
Okay, so
just the
those
pieces
stay.
that will be developing.
And
They'll
then-
stay in the township.
If someone does come in, the house gets taken down or they have to do underground utilities?
So if it comes in as an exception piece, so if it's a property that's half an acre and it comes into city limits, it would be grandfathered in with their utilities.
Okay,
I would say if a utility is out there, like if they're directly adjacent to Summerfield, I think we could encourage that they go to underground because I think that's more sustainable for everyone, but they wouldn't have to, no.
it just says they have to pay for it then too. Because it's the expense of the property owner.
Yeah, but the way I read that, it almost sounds like it's contingent on the subdivision
Correct.
of the property. So if you have an acre that comes in with overhead power lines, and they decide to divide that into 4 quarter-acre plots, that's your subdivided pursuant to the terms of the city's subdivision ordinance. So you break it down to smaller plots, then you would have to bury. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yes.
But if you just came in as 1 acre with overhead lines and you stayed 1 acre, your grandfather, you can leave your
Correct.
overhead lines up.
Yes. I'll also say that those people typically don't want to come into the city.
Correct.
So all that happening is probably not going to happen, but
You gotta consider the what ifs.
that's true.
Well, Main Street
Mm-hmm.
is all over it.
It is, yes. We're trying to figure it out. We will someday.
I tried to figure it out.
Yeah,
a long
yeah.
time.
Okay, and then clean version?
Do you have comments on the clean version?
No,
Okay. I feel like we covered it in the red line, correct?
correct.
Okay.
I was just making sure that my pages were in the right order.
My pages aren't, so you're fine.
Because then, okay, again, I'm a little bit confused, because then we go into fences, which
Mhm.
is red line too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So just got two copies of the same thing.
Yeah, she just put the clean version and the red line version in case we wanted to read one or the other, I think.
Okay, because mine must not be in the right order, because now I have clean version halfway through.
Offenses?
I have like page 17 is the updated performance standards. Page 18 is a clean copy. And then I go into page 20 and it's a red line again.
Yeah, so it's broken down by sections.
Okay, so we're good.
Okay.
Red line is fences.
Do you, okay, so it's, I took it by section. I didn't do like one full red line, one full clean.
Yeah, okay,
Because
got
that's
that.
when we start to get a little mumble jumbled in here. So I did it by section.
Okay.
Sorry, I could have included that in the memo. So let's go to fences. We'll work off the red line.
All right, I'll start off. First word, so we're trying to call this fences, but then we go fences, period, wall, fence, or hedge. So we're already talking about three things right off the bat. You may want to retitle this to wall, fence, hedge.
Yeah, I don't like that though. We gotta come up with something better.
Okay. Obscurations, or, I don't know.
Guard barrier.
We're trying to make this more readable.
Yeah, and I would think, I almost want to throw a fourth category of some kind of visual barrier. So we got fence, we talk retaining walls later,
Mm-hmm.
hedge, and then just a plain old wall.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know we could put a wall in our yard.
You can put a retaining wall.
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of using my reference from living multiple places in the Southwest. Block walls are very, very common as divisions between property. So basically, your lot is just a block wall around. Not that it's going to happen here, whatnot, but you know, if someone decides they want to put up a block wall around their yard, I don't see a problem with
Nothing
that.
preventing it. Right?
Yeah.
Be costly.
Called perimeter barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go. I
Yeah.
like that.
I don't know if I like barriers. Buffering, yeah.
ChatGPT is funny. They need kind of buffer.
Screen, no, we already did screening up above though.
Yeah. Now we're confusing terms.
Boundary treatment,
Yeah, something like that.
enclosures and barriers,
Boundaries.
Property line boundaries.
visual barriers.
I will say my one piece of feedback is like, someone's gonna search fences probably, so I want that to pop up as the first
Yeah.
thing.
I don't mind it being called fences. I get
Fences,
it.
other,
I would still call Erin anyway.
What?
I'd still call.
other boundary
Yeah, if I did hedges, I'd probably still
Division.
call it a fence. There's my fence.
things. I'll work on that.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
So the fence has to be on the property line of the person constructing it, not on the line.
It can be on the line.
Do we like, I'm assuming that's a question you get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Does that need to be put here? It does say that should be located on the private property of the person constructing, not on the line.
To the permit, right?
Does it say that in here?
No,
Not
it
on the
doesn't say
line?
not on the line, but do you need to add it?
Well, aren't the,
There are some situations where a fence could not be on a property line.
they should never be on a line.
Yeah, I thought they were all supposed to be on the person who owned it side.
The line is shared. But fences can be on the property line. If they're tucked in at all, and then both people construct a fence, it can leave a weird little strip between the two fences, which becomes pretty problematic. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Okay.
Do both neighbors have to agree if one puts a fence up on the property line?
No.
Oh,
No, it's probably a good technique to ask permission.
Maybe before they put stakes out there.
Yeah.
Okay,
But your neighbors may change.
yeah.
but requires a permit.
Correct.
To do a fence,
Yeah.
and that permit, I believe, you have to do a site survey.
Yep.
Which then, that would be your argument to get your neighbor, which neighbors do not always agree on property lines, as we know. Speaking from experience.
It's true.
Okay, anything else on fences? I'm assuming there's gonna be more.
I just had on J, chain link fences.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had a little bit of a reaction to we're only allowing them to be in the side yard and backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that's because it's visual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But there are side yards and backyards that are visible.
Correct.
And I would agree with you that they're not appealing
Mhm.
to look at. So I mean, this is hard, right? So I'm inclined to say no chain link fences.
That's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement, but I don't, unless we want to caveat this, I don't like the visual appearance of a chain link fence. And when we have it in situations, which we do in
Mhm.
the city, where you can visually see it,
Like on a corner lot.
corner lot, we've got backyards that back up to main thoroughfares, 4th Street,
Mm-hmm.
up by JCP, you go
Mhm.
through there, you've got couple chain link fences that are backyards.
I agree. I think they're more spooky than multiple houses in a row that look the same.
You have a large dog,
Mm-hmm.
you might want a chain link fence.
You're gonna have pushback from cost prohibitive, based on
That's
cost.
was my thought too.
Yeah.
You throw up a vinyl fence versus a chain link fence. I mean, even a chain link fence is wicked expensive. Now, what we're talking here sounds like stuff specific to the historic district.
No,
No.
anything that would like abut, so if the backyard abuts a street,
Sure,
Sherry's proposing that you couldn't have a chain link fence in that backyard.
Well, I'm sorry for clarity, like the examples that were brought up
Mm-hmm.
seem more to be historic district area.
Mhm.
Okay,
So when you leave tonight, drive up 4th,
okay,
where people live on like Gilfillan and then their backyard is 4th Street. And there are chain link fences along that stretch where their backyard is adjacent to the street.
okay.
Or JCP is another great example, that stretch of
Yeah.
backyards.
Yeah, and I'm not, I guess if they were maintained,
Mm-hmm.
then it wouldn't be bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you can make the argument, if you drive up 4th Street, there are wood fences that
Mhm.
look, they're not appealing either,
Mhm.
but it's because they're not maintained.
Yeah.
So
And
it's,
maybe maintained to my standards, or the grass isn't cut, at the base of the fence, so it from a, eye-appealing perspective, it's just,
I think too, chain link fences as a neighbor, because when we lived in Crystal, our neighbor had a chain link fence, and their landscaping overgrew through the chain link fence onto ours. It was
Mhm.
super frustrating because we couldn't do anything about it. But if it was an actual fence, it just made our yard look really terrible. So I'm very partial against chain link fences just because of that experience. But I totally agree with you. I think they look not great.
well, the concern is aesthetics, and it sounds like most of the concern is aesthetics from the right of way from the street view, if I'm tracking correctly. So do we want to mold this, if we're gonna go down this path, mold this to basically just apply, if you have chain link fences that are visible from the right of way, then we need some kind of aesthetic treatment to it, either some kind of landscape screening, or you put a no kidding wood fence or a vinyl fence in, or something to that effect. I think going carte blanche, no chain link fences across cities, maybe not a path we want to go down.
I can support that. That's why I asked the question, why is it only permitted in side yard and backyard? And if it's because of the aesthetics, then we should
I'm
make
just-
a note here that if the side yard or backyard are
Major
visible,
Like a
visible
through
right
the
of
street or
way, I don't know
something?
how you, yeah.
I'm just making a note, that's not,
Adjacent to the right
Yeah.
of ways that they can't have.
Municipal street or something.
Collector street, don't we have things called collector streets?
yeah.
My challenge to that would be, as somebody with a chain link fence,
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Shame.
that did not buy a chain link fence. I've looked into replacing our fence, and because I agree as well, that visually I would love a beautiful wooden fence, as would my wife. It is double the cost, the labor to put it in is almost double the cost. In their yard very well, and then neighbors who do not maintain their yard maybe at all. I would wanna say from the city standpoint, I think it's more important for us to harp on forcing people to maintain their stuff.
Mhm.
And, some of these homes, like for mine, it's really clear, you go to ours, you can't really see the back, it doesn't really matter. But I'm still picky, maybe like Sherry, where I want it to look beautiful, cause I want to be a good representation of whatever, us in the neighborhood. But that's financially not viable right now, so,
Mhm.
you know, my challenge would be like, I would say if we're gonna write anything in, we wanna make it simpler, not more complicated. That sounds complicated, and I would want, personally, if I'm someone who having to go buy a fence, and I'm like, wait, we can't do it because we're like on this one corner that's now this and that, it's like, we got a dog, we're trying to put it in because our neighbors are complaining.
Mhm.
I just say, like, we need to force them to keep up their yard and their property over, should you get a chain links versus a wood, because that cost is so different. If we're gonna force them to do anything, that would be my vote, is to ask them to.
But how
maintain
does
their-
that work so if we put language in that's like, you have to maintain it? I guess my questions are like, one, to whose standards? And two, so if they don't, what do we, like, then the city attorney gets involved, we have to tear it down?
No.
I mean, I feel
Section
like it,
C.
You
Okay,
you
nice.
can file a complaint to the city, which goes
Yeah.
to the, building
Official.
official, and they would come out and do an inspection. If it does not, apply those standards, then they would issue, essentially like a warning that gives them X amount of days to get it corrected, and if it's not,
15?
so it's the building inspector's standards.
So it's the nuisance section of of the code.
Yep.
It's really specific.
Yeah.
What it has to be, like it can't be arbitrary to say, I think your property looks bad. We have to be able to cite code and say, your grass is taller than 6 inches.
Okay.
You need to cut it within X number of days. If they don't, our public services team goes and does it and we bill them back. Does anyone feel differently about vinyl coated fencing? Some examples on the screen now.
it's way out of my yard.
So, I think, like Lincoln said, I mean, it's probably gonna be a huge cost difference.
Yeah. I feel like for the look, if we're gonna have language around maintaining it, then that feels like, okay,
Okay.
that's the path we're gonna go down.
The trouble is, you know, we're talking about what looks good for our standard.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people that want to put up a chain link fence because they trying to keep their dogs in,
Yeah.
even their kids. I mean, there are a lot of people who want to protect their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you buy a piece of property, you should have some rights to do certain things that put that within limits. And I think if you outlaw chain link fences, you're starting to interfere on property rights.
So I can support chain link fences. I can support that. But I guess I am concerned if we're limiting it to side yard and backyards for aesthetics. But then we have backyards that we can see. So,
Yeah, so like why limit it at all, or are we gonna limit it more so that you can't do it in those cases?
and that's another fair way to look at it.
The height difference between a front yard fence and a backyard fence is pretty significant. So fences can't exceed 3 feet in the front yard. So I would say in general, people don't do like a 2-tiered fence height situation, so.
So looking at number 1 there, it talks about your 3-foot fence.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason we would allow front yard fences anyway? This says that chain link aren't allowed in the front yard, but you can have another 3-foot fence in your front yard? Like, what are you gonna keep out or in with 3 feet?
Like those dainty little white fences that, you've not seen those?
4th Street is gonna be another
Yeah,
good
it's like
example.
ornamental, I feel.
There's a front yard fence on 4th,
Okay,
so I think some people like the way they look.
okay.
The white picket fence,
Yeah.
the American dream.
That, okay, I have a different visual in my mind of trying to keep bunnies out of my yard with fences.
I think the
No.
American dream was 4 feet though.
Yeah.
3 feet seems really short.
6 or 8.
Okay, anything else on,
Though reads, I feel like you are prohibited in all zones, and then a new sentence that says it can be used in the
Oh, sure.
agricultural district. I
Yeah.
feel like, I don't know.
all zones except agriculture?
Yeah.
Or all residential.
Yeah.
And that's the residential, it's point of clarity, we should circle back a little bit. All this fence discussion's been residential so
Mhm.
far. For clarity, at bullet 19, maybe it's worthwhile throwing residential fences or residential, whatever term we use for these visual barriers or putting on
Sure.
property lines. Because we have a separate set of standards for commercial
Commercial.
industrial.
Yep.
But then on number 3, it says commercial industrial zone fences must be 8 feet in height.
3?
Yeah, you already went by it.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
Okay.
And then you also has to have, talking about, barbed wire, electric, whatever. Those
can be in an ag
It says
district.
can be in an ag district.
Yes.
Okay. And we're not commercial industrial.
So this isn't really strictly a residential discussion.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of
Yep.
getting
Okay.
at.
So strike my previous comment then.
So continuing to scroll down, are we on to retaining walls?
Well, let me go back to the chain link fence. So we
Mhm.
added it can't be seen adjacent to the right of ways. I mean, do you guys support that? I can be outvoted. I don't care.
I think when the zoning.
Should we just leave it the way it is?
If a permit hasn't come in, is it discussed then? I don't prohibit someone from putting a fence up if they can't put shrubs on the other side of the fence to screen it.
I would say at a staff level, I think it'd be a difficult conversation to have.
And
To say if you live on a corner lot, which is probably going to be larger, that you have to have a vinyl fence. If someone has,
Then just go ahead and remove the stuff in yellow there and leave it as it is.
Something about too, in some cases, in all cases, there are gonna be HOAs and they may
mm-hmm,
further restrict the fencing beyond the city code. If they have an HOA.
That does anything.
Yeah.
Can we add language to it that says something about you can't have overgrowth going through it or something? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Cause isn't that the visual issue with chain link fences is all that stuff that,
I think that goes with any fence.
okay, then never mind.
and C,
Well, I think that would be, I just mean all the shrubbery and stuff that starts
I understand. It's just almost like can of
yeah, I get it.
In section C, can it be the fence and surrounding landscaping?
yeah. Every
To
fence.
be maintained, not to become a hazard, eyesore, or public.
Yeah. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, now we on to
Retaining walls?
retaining walls? Is this known? If people are doing landscaping, do they know they need a building permit for a retaining wall? Because the retaining wall is holding something up. So I'm assuming they know that.
Yeah, so anything under 4 feet doesn't require a permit. Anything 4 feet plus requires an engineered plan. So do people know that? Maybe, I don't know. Should they know that? Yeah, should it be engineered? Absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe we should require studying the planning commission and taking a test before you move into the city.
How do you feel about chain link fences? Is the one.
What are the approved colors for
It's a
the
good
historic
interview
district?
question for
Yeah.
next year.
So this is kind of like the same kind of thing, like your neighbor's probably telling on you if you're building a deck without a permit.
Yeah.
They're probably telling on you if you're building a retaining wall without a permit.
Or Paul Schultz is driving around. He calls us and tells us.
He looks in people's backyards.
Paul is the eyes and ears of the city.
Okay.
He's on our public services team.
Well, I mean, I've gone through this with loft ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had people take some of them down,
Yeah.
decks and things.
Good on retaining walls, fences.
Okay, I think that's the end.
I just want to go back to the wall discussion. So we got retaining wall. Do we want to differentiate terms between, as far as a fence and a wall are two separate things, or just kind of lump a wall and a fence in the same kind of man-made barrier?
We want wall in there at all.
Yeah, but I see it coming up. Is a wall a fence? Is a fence a wall?
So you're just saying have a fence section and have a retaining wall section.
Well,
No, he means like
not
a-
really, but just
If you built a wall around your yard.
Which would be spooky too.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be,
you
The
can have a
concern
decorative field stuff
about the walls and their height
Mhm.
was a safety issue.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other option too, but I mean, that's every lot in the Southwest, but, just more kind of a catch-all phrase, like
Mm-hmm.
fences, meaning walls, hedges, for the rest of the section or something like that.
Is this, so on screening you have to have an opaque.
Right.
Do you want a fence? Oh, because now you're saying you can't have a wall.
Well,
It's a
retaining walls and a regular wall are two different
Correct.
things.
Okay, if you don't have a retaining wall, what's your application of a wall?
You could just
block.
have a stone wall,
Cinder blocks
cinder block
around
wall,
all four
some kind of
sides.
barrier
Think
instead of a fence that you
Arizona.
can see through like a fence.
Yeah, I don't think
Concrete brick wall.
we want those.
so then you would just take out the word walls probably, because you have a retaining wall section.
Yeah, I would just make it here retaining walls, fences, and hedges to cover.
So we're not allowing any kind of solid walls,
Solid concrete wall.
brick, stone.
Brick.
I mean, I think that would be
I
spooky.
mean, already got kind of basically walls in the city already with these split face walls on like the bridge out here and stuff, a concrete block.
Yeah, but that's a bridge.
Yeah,
I know, but it's aesthetically acceptable to the city to have bridges and stuff like that.
A bridge and a perimeter wall are really different things for me.
I agree.
Thinking if you have a cement wall, you're gonna have a bunker in your house.
Yeah, I feel like I'm
Not
waiting,
necessarily.
I don't want to
Get
be
that
that.
Not necessarily, since this whole section applies, you could, like we have with some of the commercial properties, they're gonna have concrete walls. Divide, fence off, like, name escapes me,
Lee Schwab's gonna.
Schwab's
have their
place, yes.
The
entire-
bullpen.
Spent
Yes.
entire thing is
Yeah.
gonna be 3 concrete walls.
yeah.
Is that a fence or is that a screening?
I'd say
Exactly.
in a residential application, that's not something we should do.
I don't see why someone, if they wanna put a wall up, they wanna put like a decorative brick wall, why we should prevent them from doing that. That's just a personal opinion. If they wanna do that, and it looks nice, cool. But that's just a personal opinion.
I guess I can't picture a situation where it looks nice. That's my problem, is I can't.
Yeah, but you decide
I
it
know.
doesn't look
I
nice,
know.
but they might decide
Yeah.
that it does look nice.
But just take a retaining wall and just imagine with no dirt behind it, that's what it's gonna look like. You're gonna see the same
Lincoln, do
face
you
on
have
the
one of
retaining
those?
wall.
But the pretty block has to be facing the outside. Would that fall into factor here too?
Other thoughts? How do we feel
Well,
about
when I think
standalone
of
walls?
retaining wall, it's retaining something.
Correct.
So
It's holding back earth.
it's
Yeah.
holding back something, right? So,
Well, if it's just there, it's holding back the thunder and herds. I mean, we can say we don't like walls, nobody should have a wall.
I don't
And
have
then
a.
the next thing is, we don't like green colored houses, and we don't want,
I don't really have a preference of, if somebody wants to build a concrete wall,
Would that require a permit?
I can't in good faith let that happen. And if you all want to overturn me and say, yes, we want that to
then
happen.
we should
Then
call
we
you
should
out.
put
don't
some-
even live in the town.
I
But then
know,
we should
that's
put
true.
something in there, because are
Okay.
they gonna know if I'm building a stone fortress around my palace that I can't have that?
And it sounds like Eric would like to be open to that, so I'm looking for some feedback from the rest of you.
I mean, I would not be happy if my neighbor decided to put a cylinder concrete block wall between our house and theirs.
Mhm.
That wouldn't make me happy.
I actually don't feel that strongly about it, but I get it. 100% I get it.
I think the great thing is now, it's so expensive to put in a wall, that nobody's gonna
The chain
do
link,
it.
they, yeah.
But
Do they
I-
have
And
to
if you
put,
tell them they can't do it,
they're gonna
then
wanna
they
do
will
it?
do it.
I think this all boils down to just a regionality issue. So living in the Middle East, living in Europe, living in Arizona, living in New Mexico, living in Texas, block walls are ubiquitous, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just not very common here.
Is it because of the like dirt, sand, yard situation that blows? That's what you need to keep that.
And I think it's just
Contain-
more accessibility and cost of building materials.
I don't feel strongly about it, so I don't.
If on the permit for fences, does it say what is this material composed of?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone came in and said, I'm going to build a concrete wall,
Mhm.
you would,
I would know that.
but you have no say that they can't do it.
If it's not in our code, it's not permitted.
Say that again?
So if something is not in our code, it's not permitted.
It's not permitted.
Correct.
It's not in our code.
Correct.
So we don't have to put it in there then.
We can, if it's something that we think will come up and we would like to be really direct and clear about it, we can absolutely add a section.
I'd say leave it. It's not in there.
It's not in there, so let's just leave it that way.
Okay.
Wait for someone to build it. Tell me what the price is then.
Cannot picture it.
If you get a request for a concrete wall before we get done with this section,
Mhm.
put it in.
Can we take a field trip as well? That will be the question.
I also have a question. I think G and C are the same. So fences and retaining walls must be in good repair and not pose a danger to people or property. But that seems the same as C to me.
Oh, I'm in performance standards.
Well, yours are all separate.
G.
I think it's already there.
Okay.
Yeah, so just delete. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fences is done on to,
Home-based businesses.
so I had a couple questions on this one. Are home-based businesses allowed signage, or is that part of a different code? Because we had a sign.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't say
No.
anything about that.
You wouldn't be able to put a permanent sign in a residential district.
Wall.
No.
The concrete wall.
Section E, only one vehicle at a time.
If you feel strongly, let me know.
I'm trying to think of what people have home businesses. I'm thinking like Avon, Mary Kay. Like you can't have two dueling businesses at your house.
Does it include in-home daycares?
No, because that's a separate call out in the residential chapter. think about if like someone was a therapist and they did therapy out of their home, or massage, or a hairdresser.
Okay. I was thinking of different businesses than that.
I would think though, so if you're a therapist, if we back-to-back appointments, you're gonna have
Sure.
more than one. You have
Yep.
couples therapy, you're gonna have more than one. I feel like that
Because
language.
they're not driving.
Yeah, because they're in, yeah.
That's why they're going for the
No, I feel like it should be like more so like just it shouldn't obstruct the traffic flow or
Mhm.
something like, I don't know.
Well, you can get 3 or 4 cars in a driveway.
Yeah.
Some driveways, some you can't get one car in a garage, so.
Well, the question should be then, how many, allowing no more than 1 car on the street? Forced to park on the street.
Yeah, I agree that one is not super practical. And I don't know if we want to require that they park in a driveway. Just,
No, you just limit number of cars that are allowed to park on the street.
yeah, I don't know how we would track that.
They should be coming and going, not
Yeah.
continually there.
I feel like the language should almost be like obstruct the flow of traffic on
Right.
the street as opposed to how many vehicles can
Yeah.
be parked.
Agreed.
Because it's gonna be different depending on how big the street is, what the,
So what happens if a husband and wife, or whoever's living in the house, they each have a home-based business? That's not
Mhm.
all.
Under which one?
F.
Yeah.
Then one
That was where
person.
my question was, why are we limiting it?
yeah.
So then it's no more than one person other than those living in the residence may be employed by the home-based business.
Oh,
So that would be if you had a
How
staff.
would we police that?
So your neighbors would probably know.
Why do we care?
I think the goal of it is to keep it truly something small that's not going to be disruptive to your neighbors. Since it's a residentially zoned property, you want to eliminate what would make it feel more commercial.
so one person can't be the president and the other person can't be the treasurer, like,
No, they,
Do the
they
books.
live there.
No more than 1 person other than those living in the residence.
So you and your husband couldn't have 4 employees that come work from your house every single day.
But you could have
One
husband and wife and 5 kids all working in the business.
so I'm thinking I used to work for a tax agent and he did taxes out of his house and 2 or 3 of us went there and worked for him.
You didn't live in Carver.
He did not live in Carver.
Yeah, I agree that that one seems odd.
I feel like we could cover it in parking too, just to include that traffic can't be impaired on the street. Okay.
Yeah.
Do home-based business have to register with the city so you know?
No.
So I think anything in this is gonna be hard to enforce.
Yes, but I think it's important.
Correct. Okay.
Can we go to C? I
Mhm.
want to know what's so magical about 18 feet for a delivery vehicle.
They don't want a semi backing down the road to deliver your,
Well, for example, my truck is 19 and a half feet long,
oh,
F-150. Average minivan is just a hair under 18 feet, at like 17 feet, 8 inches.
that's not commercial.
A Suburban is 19 feet. Well, that's the whole point. Like, what's so
Yeah.
magical about 18 feet? Because I throw those out for comparisons. An
Yeah.
18-foot vehicle is very, very common around here. Then the other part of that is generally, and this is quick Google search, so I know mine's come off as an expert on this, but commercial vehicles are classified by gross vehicle weight instead of length. So if we have some kind of concern with certain types of commercial vehicles, for consistency with state and federal code, we should switch the metric to gross vehicle weight instead of length.
But wouldn't a commercial vehicle also be like a FedEx or UPS?
Yes.
Length is the one that's gonna cause the bigger issue, not the
Yeah, I
weight,
agree.
other than tearing up the street.
Correct.
I don't think a FedEx delivery truck is concurrent with a home-based business.
It could be. So like FedEx Ground, those are all contractors, and they could theoretically have their own private van that they can park at their house. But they're gonna be out out of the neighborhood doing their routes.
Is this to prevent a semi-truck and 18-wheeler going down the road?
Yes.
And parking and delivering
Correct.
stuff?
Because you're
That's
getting
what it's-
delivery materials, which I think could be from anyone.
Well,
I do like the comparison of the F-150 though, because
Mhm.
this maybe is just outdated, that 18 feet is not
It-
keeping up with how big our vehicles are.
Is yours a commercial vehicle?
No, but I'm just saying, like, if an F-150 is 19 feet, then why limit a commercial vehicle that's to 18 feet? That's smaller than a residential
A
vehicle.
minivan almost.
And then you get into parts where your daily driver is your company vehicle. And if you're running LLC or whatever, now your LLC owns your F-150, is that now classified as a commercial vehicle? And I think really obviously there's a concern with the length of blocking traffic, but then also generally, and this is where I wish we had Erin here for engineering to speak, and I'm reaching back to 25 years ago from civil engineering classes. Roads are stressed for certain vehicle weights. And generally, residential streets aren't stressed for commercial vehicles of certain gross weights. That you're talking like delivery vans and semi-trucks to handle that traffic repeatedly. So there is some concern that we'd be wearing out some of these residential roads maybe a little bit more quickly than planned if we're allowing a lot of commercial traffic going up and down these roads versus a mainline road that's stressed for commercial vehicles.
Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna take the 18 feet out.
Correct. Do you
Okay.
want to, can you bring this back to Erin and see if he has any?
I'm not worried about,
No? Okay.
we have
Wait.
road restrictions
Okay.
in the
so fine.
spring, but our roads are built to handle traffic. We're not going to allow a semi doing daily delivery in a residential
Okay.
property, so let's update the length and make it more specific of a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what's the biggest load on our residential streets?
Garbage truck.
And we have 3 of them well, actually not. We have about 4.5 every week.
I have 3 just coming to my house.
All right, do we have anything else for home-based businesses? Okay. Parking and driveways.
It's 4.5 because you have the regular garbage, and every other week you have.
Oh, I get it. Recycling.
So part of, there was a table in there.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of home-based businesses, or that is part of what we're reviewing now?
Parking and driveways has the
Okay.
table.
The red line didn't start right away, so I was, okay. So the red line really doesn't.
I don't-
I don't think we got that red.
We didn't get that red line.
Okay.
We got it on the table only.
Oh, so you must have gotten just the accepted version.
Yeah.
I'll say in general, not a ton of the content changed in the parking and driveways. Generally, the section of our code operates pretty well. The table, the removal is of the maximum parking spaces, which has always puzzled me a little bit why we would
Max out.
max out, especially with how expensive parking lots are. Like a developer's not gonna build us a Target parking lot for a tiny store, so.
I did have a question.
Mhm.
On the table, there's no minimum parking spot for a single-family house? Like, you don't have to have a parking spot for one vehicle?
No, you wouldn't have to. We do in Carver because everyone has a driveway typically, but like downtown, there are some houses that don't have driveways.
Got it, okay.
Just for context, how does these parking minimums and maximums compare to other municipalities in the area?
I would say they're pretty typical. Like we don't get, like Next Steps was a really good example because they were building in Chaska, or they just built in Chaska and then they were doing Shakopee at the same time we were. So we got a lot of comparison to the Shakopee code. In general, I would say for our minimum parking, I would say we're more flexible than some communities. We don't require as much parking. Our shared parking is also pretty unique. So Carver Square, where Carver Dental, Mizzy's, O2B Kids has a different parking agreement than other locations, which I think is unique and helpful that you could share parking lots for different users for different times.
So I have a question about the shared parking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had daycare and Missy's as my notes. So what happens if the type of business changes?
I have a handy dandy spreadsheet that I update. So when something changes, they either come in for a building permit or a building code analysis that shows us the new type. And if they were to exceed the parking, they wouldn't be a permitted user there unless they could demonstrate more parking. So if you remember when Missy's came in, they added an additional like 18 stalls along the entrance of that development because they didn't meet the shared parking requirement.
What if some of those are rentals though in that unit?
Same,
They still have to come in?
correct.
Okay.
And is that written somewhere in the code that if the purpose of the building changes,
Mhm.
that they have to meet these shared standards?
It's like through the building code that it's a requirement that they have to come in. They usually have to do a SAC determination to a sewer availability charge. So a change of use happens.
Okay.
So I have a question on parking for bed and breakfast,
Mhm.
motels, hotels. We don't have any, but we do have VRBOs.
Mhm.
There is not specific I'm thinking of the one above Getaway. There's not
Sure.
specific parking for them.
Mhm.
Does there need to be?
I like that call out.
There is in front of Getaway, like you can park overnight in those stalls. So,
But as a guest, it doesn't say like reserved for guest. Because it's public parking. now?
correct, yeah.
Because those are becoming more popular, do we want to add something around, like, I don't know what you'd call like a VRBO or an Airbnb, but
Has to have proof of one parking, off-street parking location.
like an overnight parking?
The
I
tricky
feel like
thing,
Bed and I mean, it's not, like, we could add it just to the bed and breakfast, like
Yeah.
bed and breakfast or,
we don't license Airbnbs or VRBOs. So we don't keep an inventory beyond us seeing what's available on the sites.
that makes sense.
So, and I will say, like locations downtown, I know of 2 downtown, and they have to at least give their guests feedback about where they can park downtown. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So the one, yeah.
That's not considered like a home-based business?
Mm-mm. A person has to live in the space for it to be a home-based business.
Got it.
So in the maximum vehicle, all this red, you're just defining what maximum is.
I want to get rid of maximum parking.
So what does the red mean in here?
Delete it.
Oh, it's just not struck through.
Correct.
I think the minimum like bicycle space is a
Mhm.
little weird, kind of weird.
Okay.
Like I understand for multiple, family dwellings, you want to have one, but to say for a commercial building, you need to have a bike rack. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of feel in general, just get rid of all the like min requirements. If a business wants to offer that service, great on them, but do we really need to dictate always?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the bikes because I actually wrote a note about what happens down here downtown, like the ice cream shop in the summer when the kids ride their bikes
It's a
down
hot
there.
mess.
You can't even
I
walk on the
actually agree
sidewalk.
with having the bikes thing in there because of that.
But they don't have any, do they?
I don't know if they do, but that's what
They
came
do.
to my mind when I
Like
was
a
reading.
little one on the side.
That's what when I was
Yeah.
reading the bike section, that's what came to mind. I know
Yep.
that Motor Cafe has one
Mm-hmm.
on the side of their building.
I'll say just in general, the amount of trails that Carver provides, people do bike frequently.
Yeah. And that was also my note, with this trail getting completed across the
Mhm.
river, we are a heavy biking town,
Yeah.
they love to stop.
And I think that if you don't offer it, it's not that they don't stop, it's that they stop and they just put their bikes anywhere. And I think with electric bikes becoming more of a thing, you're gonna see that pick up even more.
But this is saying you have to have a bike rack.
Yeah, for like the safety of like sidewalk users, basically. I think that's the point of it, right?
And the
Mhm.
bike rack is on the sidewalk.
No, it can't obstruct a sidewalk.
Okay.
I think we should have the bike racks. I mean, we wanna promote a healthy environment.
I like
And
it,
safe
yeah,
one.
I like it. Is the, for the, if you go up,
Mhm.
for the assisted living places, is the
Mhm.
0.3 per resident, like, that's enough? I guess I never see Carver Ridge as like full, but,
Yeah, folks living in in an assisted living typically don't have a car. Carver Ridge also has the underground parking facility where they each get a stall underground, so. But some feedback we got specifics from Carver Ridge and then Carver Oaks is that their spaces are not full. People in assisted living typically don't independently drive.
okay. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I never see it full, so.
Do you need a maximum then on that assisted living?
Do you mean why it's there? It's because it's red.
Because it's going away.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought when I read this that you were changing everything to what's in the red, and I was
Yeah.
like.
Oh, no. When I just deleted it as a column, so instead of going through the text and striking them, the whole column would go.
Well, since we're gonna keep the bike minimums, does anybody else find it slightly ironic that there's no bike parking minimum for a bike shop?
they're all inside so you can buy them. And the animal hospital doesn't have one.
I mean, you're gonna bike with a cat on your back?
Yes. I'm gonna bike and my dog's gonna run next to my bike.
Gonna
All right.
hear it.
Yeah,
No, I think you need some for the bank.
yeah, the bank should have some.
Well,
Personally, ridden my bike to the bank, hometown.
we should consider, they've repaired the trail, the bike trail for the cities. And now they're gonna add section on the south side of the river. That potentially we're gonna see a lot more bike traffic on that trail.
Yes, correct.
And I think you may eventually start having businesses, I mean, the ice cream shop would be one right now, and Harvey's and Lisa's would be places that might attract a lot of bike.
For sure.
Do you need that column there, or can it just be in general?
Bike racks are required with
Bike
new.
racks are required.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many vehicle spaces you have, because a lot of these are public, like in the street parking.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever want to get to the point of counting spaces in a bike rack, because I think
Correct.
it's preference-based too.
Just provide one.
Yeah, okay.
And then again, just note that it shouldn't be in walking areas.
Yeah.
Anything else in parking?
Yeah, I'm looking at arcade and mini golf and bowling. Kind of switch metrics from GFA or head counts to number of table games or number of lanes, maybe for consistency. Switch back to a metric that's in line with everything else as far as GFA or head count.
Do you say arcades? Is that the first one?
Yep, arcade, mini golf, bowling.
Am I scrolling past it?
It's on page 6 of 13,
6 of 13. Oh, public assembly? Yeah,
right there, arcade.
okay.
And mini golf.
Yeah. And I just, I mean, this is a one-off type example. I think like the Borough of Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
It's got mini golf in there. It's got arcades. I mean, you're not going to have these homogeneous arcades really much anymore. You are going to have some video games or table games. It's going to be a smaller portion of
Yeah.
the business. So now we're kind of which metric applies here.
So more per square foot, putting them
Yeah.
on backwards.
Yeah, just for consistency with the rest of the rest of the measurements or the rest of the requirements.
We could do it here too.
Anything on shared parking spaces?
Excuse me.
How do you measure, as far as funeral homes, how do we know how many seats they're gonna have?
That's what I'm highlighting. I'm gonna do them all to square footage.
I don't know, might be weird, but is it by commercial or industrial that you can kind of lump them all together versus having to list them all out?
That's how they are. There's just some wonky ones, I think. So, like, there's an industrial section.
Okay,
I just want to clean it up
got it.
because I wouldn't look for an arcade under public assembly. I would go under a commercial use, I think.
Business, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You fooled us on that one.
What's that?
You fooled us on that last one.
So anything on the shared parking? 9 of 13 starting?
No, I just had a comment on on those, that grid seems out of place to the rest of the, because the definitions of shared parking, I had to go all the way back. It was on page 2 of 13, and we're on page 9 of 13 to see the table, so I don't know.
Okay.
So start with text and then follow with the table?
I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
This is another clarity point, but, you know, we're talking vehicle parking. Is that safe to assume also we're including vehicles, not just automobiles, but motorcycles as well?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think we had was there any red line in the rest of that shared parking?
No, I don't think so. I created that driveway section at the end. But that should be on your accepted version too.
Yeah.
Regarding compact vehicles, 20% required. How does that fall in line with other municipalities? It seems a little bit high, but I don't have any context.
I had the same observation, 20% seemed high to me.
In B.
I think maybe 10% would be a little bit more appropriate.
Okay.
Do we have any language in here around requirements for like electrical vehicles or charging stations for any of that, or not? That's not a thing we do.
No, we do, like, there's a public charging facility in Ironwood. The park has one that you can pay to use.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, no.
Okay.
I didn't know that was there.
It's there.
Okay. Parking and driveways?
Mm-hmm.
Anything on the end where it was residential? In the red Erin showing on the screen for residential driveways?
I had some, I'm trying to find it. Some about 24 feet.
Yeah, it's some bottom
Oh,
page
okay.
12
It's
under
that residential
driveways.
driveways A.
Yeah, okay. So my driveway is 28 feet wide. A 3-car garage is gonna be probably close to 30 feet wide. What's magical about 24 feet?
Is your driveway 28 feet at the right of way?
It necks down to probably 24, I didn't measure it.
So 24, it's in our code right now, it's existing. What it does is that we don't want 3-stall garage with driveways down to the right of way. Because if you have that at every single house, the entire block will be driveway. So there's nothing magical about the 24. I would be apprehensive to go larger.
So it's just essentially aesthetic preference.
Correct. It also allows for space for parking. So if everyone had a driveway at the right of way that was 30 feet, 32 feet, you probably wouldn't be able to fit a car between the two for on-street parking.
It's also less to plow when the snow plow comes through, it's less being buried.
This one, I think C is interesting too, because driveways must be 6 feet from all all property lines?
Side yard easements are typically 6 feet.
I bet you there's 4 feet between my driveway and the neighbor's driveway.
Then you're probably in an easement, Krista, with your metal house.
Probably am. Are driveways looked at though on plans?
Yes.
Okay.
I will say the Bluffs went in a different era. Like, don't feel bad about it at all.
It went in a different era than the original blocks.
That's true too.
My lot lines are a little screwy over there.
They were allowed to get away with anything.
Okay, on to the next section, which would be parking and driveways.
Oh, sorry.
This is duplicate.
Oh,
Yeah, it is.
okay,
That's,
so that's
that
the
was a
clean
duplicate.
version.
That must have been what
It's
happened.
actually a duplicate
Okay.
of what we just went through.
Oh, hot dog. I think we're done then.
No,
Oh.
we have 2 more.
ADUs.
They're
It
new.
must be short then, because,
Yeah.
and we reviewed this recently, didn't we?
Site plan is new. ADUs you did recently.
Okay.
We did do ADUs?
Yeah, we've talked about them.
You might not have been here yet.
I don't think I was here.
Oh,
I did see
welcome.
that Chan is now allowing ADUs in backyards.
Yes.
So are we gonna talk about ADUs?
Yeah, after site plan.
Oh,
I don't
So
think
in
there's-
full transparency, Dave works for the city of Medina, and this is completely based off Medina's site plan review section, so,
So this is entirely new.
yes, to our code.
Okay,
In general, not to developing cities, but to our code, yes.
okay.
I didn't have any,
Page 54.
I didn't have any questions when I read it,
Is
and
it-
it's even more clear now that you explained the purpose and intent
Yeah.
behind it. So I don't have any questions.
Does it say if it needs to be included in, oh, wrong button, like preliminary or final, or which plan we're reviewing it?
So a site plan, you either do the plating process or a site plan review. You wouldn't do both.
Okay,
So in one, properties that are undergoing a plating process are not required to do the site plan review because we do it through plating.
okay.
We do the same steps.
Anyone else have any questions or concerns on site plan review?
Oh, Dave is gonna be so thrilled.
Well, we could add something, we could, that's probably why you wanted to stay.
Does this
I
meet
told
your
him.
needs though, Erin?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, and then ADU?
Yes. Yep.
I have lots of questions on this one, but
Great.
maybe that's because I wasn't here.
It was before you started on planning commission that we
Okay.
talked about ADUs. Correct?
I think so,
It's
yeah.
been a while, I mean, I remember it.
Go for it.
Okay, so when I read through this, I was a little concerned about how big these things could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was concerned about how people get to them. So, for example, we were just talking about parking and driveways.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a rule in here that says you cannot start a new driveway from the right of way. But I could take my current driveway and make a little jot off and around the house I go, and now I've got cars parking in the backyard.
You better hope there's not a fence there.
So I like started to think like that, but I was surprised at how big these could be. I mean, we have homes here right on Main Street that are 800 square feet homes, and you think about taking a house like that and putting it in the backyard.
So 800 square feet is the maximum size of our accessory structures.
That's big.
It is. But if you ask some people, they want them far larger. But if you wanted to do a detached garage in your backyard, you could go up to 800 square feet.
These are like in-law suites or like,
Correct.
okay.
So are they required, they're required to pull a permit
Yeah.
for this?
Yep.
it said here that they are gonna connect to sewer and water that's established at the house, so there's
Correct.
no new utility poles, but then my mind jumped to, can our sewer and water systems handle this?
So the SAC determination would tell us it would be 2 instead of 1. So every house requires a sewer availability charge. If you had 2 dwelling units, it would be 2. I'll also say anecdotally from communities that have recently adopted ADU ordinances, I'd be surprised if any of them have 3 or more. So I don't think the addition of the ADU section is going to stress our system.
I don't think almost anybody can, as recently reviewing to build a shed in the backyard, 200 square feet. And I have half an acre, that was like, I'm barely,
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to.
Because your
squeeze
lot
that
size
in.
has to be fairly big to
Correct.
get something on
based
it.
on what the permit would require, how far I gotta meet from all your things.
Setbacks.
I was like, man, I can't think of only a few properties, except up on Mount Hope, they're building a big old thing, but they got a huge property.
And that's it, yeah, that one has a story behind it too.
Can they, so could I bring in a manufactured home under 800 square feet?
I would say, so
A
it
tiny
has
house on wheels?
to have a
Yeah, wheels.
foundation,
Oh,
Still needs permit.
yep, and it has to be compatible with the house.
Okay,
So
I'll
if
make
it,
it look pretty with my
Yeah.
house, and then you're okay.
I think
Mhm.
a lot of those like in-law houses are like pre-manufactured and like set back there. They also like for like adults with disabilities that they want to live independent from their parents, but they can't. Like that would
Yeah,
be another
I'm
use
not
for it.
opposed to them, I think they're a
No,
fabulous
yeah.
idea, and
Mhm.
who knows, maybe there's one in my future. But I was just, it's the size, like 800 square feet is big.
Mhm.
So then I just, is there a minimum lot size requirement?
So in our conversations previously, I think we said that they were in the R1 zoning district, which would be the only lots that are probably large enough.
But that's not articulated here.
It's in the residential section of the code.
Okay,
if except ADUs are allowed, based on the lot size.
okay.
And it also says somewhere that they can't be rented or
Correct.
Yeah.
something.
That's in this one, I think, that it can't be short-term or long-term rented.
Occupancy.
Has to be like a primary.
Yeah.
So then, then my mind jumped to something, I don't know if you guys have heard this, it's called junior ADUs, which are ADUs, but they're contained within a residence.
Oh, yeah, we
What?
have those now.
Yeah, what? So are they building those here in town?
Mhm. So if you had like a fully built-out apartment in your basement, that's not a duplex. It's often used for family members that share a home within.
Multi-generational thing.
Correct.
Yeah, they don't have a full kitchen, they have an efficiency kitchen.
Right.
So,
Like it's like an in-law suite.
Correct.
It has its own entrance or something.
Sometimes,
sometimes.
I don't know if
Not
you're
all the
familiar
time.
with, like Lennar was
So
built
does
up
that fall in?
in Arizona.
Oh,
no,
really?
Should it? No, because it's
No.
not a separate structure.
Correct.
They take the dining room and
Can they have a
formal
basement?
sitting room and turn it into like a small apartment.
I think they could.
Put
Does
a
that
kitchen
count for the
basement.
800 square feet?
No, it's the foundation size.
But it says it can't go over 1.5 stories, so I would say no basement then.
I mean, if it was like a full basement and you wanted to dig 16 feet into the ground, I think you could. If you got a grading permit and it worked out.
Have we seen any ADUs come in for permit?
They're not allowed right now, so no.
Oh,
Well, that was my last, maybe I should ask that question first. Where in the city are these things allowed?
I will say there are some opportunities in the historic district where there is living space like above a garage that they have not been able to put a bathroom facility in because we don't, that's kind of been our tipping point of making it an ADU as opposed to just like a separate living space. So I'd say there is some demand in town to allow for those spaces to be retrofitted to be units.
Wait, so if you had like that, where it's above the garage living,
Mhm.
that's considered an ADU?
It would be if it had a bathroom, a kitchen, a sleeping space, yes.
And then an HOA can say no,
Yes,
and that overrides the city
correct.
code.
So I think we're going to move forward with this in general. I'm gonna be surprised if we get an ADU application, but there is enough interest of people looking for information about it that it needed to be part of the discussion.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to it. I was, like I said, it's the first time I had seen it, so.
Yeah.
They're so expensive to build. It's like building another single-family home on your property. It's-
Multiple fences then.
Yeah, that's been the feedback that many cities have gotten, is like, they passed the ordinance, they thought people would come running down for a permit, but they're really expensive to build, so.
What I didn't see in here, and my only other comment was, it has to be built to our building code.
Correct.
That's not in here.
You'd come in for building permit. It would require a building permit, which requires the building code.
Okay.
Which is complicated. Can we make that simpler?
Okay, so done discussing the special regulations zoning code.
Part of it for tonight.
There's more?
Yeah, there's more sections.
Man,
Like, we didn't do bluff protection, landscaping, buffering. We got through a lot of
Like
it.
that one, aren't we?
We did get through a lot of it.
I bet bluff code is double digits.
Pages,
No, just how many we've done.
versions of it. Yeah. I wish, my hope is that I can create a diagram to make it more sense, make more sense. Because it's hard to understand right now. But maybe you all will get it and teach me a thing or two.
Okay, starting with communications. Sherry, anything for you?
Oops.
Jim?
No,
I have 3.
Oh.
I've been saving these up for a while. Motorized bikes, e-bikes. Do we have any definitions in city code about what they are, where they can go, what they can't do?
I think so.
You've been on Carver Life lately, haven't you?
I almost got pegged off by a kid on one. I was on the sidewalk walking,
Yeah,
and they just came
it's
zooming
like a
by,
huge
and
thing right now.
Classify them as mopeds.
It's like, does it matter if it has a motor or pedals or?
Yeah, they're riding them on the sidewalks.
Correct, and I
It's like a
think
huge
maybe
thing.
just a little education would be good.
Okay.
Definitions.
There's something in our code that says you can't use, I want to say it says like motorized something. I don't know what it is right now, though.
Yeah, so just some education on that.
Okay.
And then, I don't know what development backs up to 212.
Where?
There's a bunch of dead trees.
The preserve. I was just out there. Is it the Brandel Anderson product?
Yes.
Yes. So we did their walkthrough a couple weeks ago, and we have asked them to replace all those trees.
Okay. And then the pickleball dog thing, any timeline for that?
Midsummer, we're hoping like late July.
Like,
It's a lake right now. Did you see it?
I have not seen it. My only concern is, okay, so the pickleball fence, I'm assuming butts up fairly close. You have that little path in between
Mm-hmm.
of a dog park.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have some not experienced pickleball players, that fence might be too short.
Mm.
And then it's gonna fly into the dog park, and we know that dogs like balls, so,
Time to play
Like-
fetch.
yeah, and how do you get that ball back then? So that's my only concern of that pickleball court.
Okay.
Or, yeah,
That's a great.
bring
Great call.
several balls with you.
correct, but my playing abilities, they would all be ending up in the dog park, so. And I would go to the other court too, but I'm just,
Well, then that would stop that annoying pickleball.
probably shouldn't be playing, but you know, gotta try it, it's close by.
I have
Anything?
nothing, no. Mm-mm.
Nothing, okay, well. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, we're done.
Great.
No, we don't have to vote.
That's correct. You're right.
Actually, you don't even need a motion. All you have to do is say, well, we've completed our
I'm following the script.
I haven't listened.